Martha Dowling shuddered as she looked around her, and when Mchl returned to lead her in, she felt half afraid of crossing the gloomy threshold. But the widow Armstrong was, as usual, less dirty in her abject misery than, perhaps, any other inhabitant of Hoxley Lane, or its immediate neighbourhood, and the mild countenance and gentle voice with which she replied to the young lady's salutations removed all her scruples, and she seated herself in the chair placed for her by Mchl, with the best disposition in the world to improve the acquaintance. "I hope you are getting better, Miss Armstrong," said Martha, in that tone of genuine female softness, which is so impossible to mistake, "and that you don't miss little Mchl as much as you did at first." "You are very kind, ma'am, to take the trouble of coming to such a place as this," replied the poor woman, in a voice that indicated something like surprise. Upon which Mchl, who had stationed himself near enough to enable him to slip his little hand into hers, said with a tolerably expressive emphasis, "This is Miss Martha, mother." "I wish, ma'am, I had the strength and power to thank you as I ought for all your condescending kindness to my poor boy," said the widow earnestly. "I've never seen him that he has not had some fresh story to tell me of your goodness to him. He can read a chapter in the Bible now, as well as any boy of his age need do. And oh, miss, this is all owing to you, for never could he have given his time to it in the factory." "There is more praise due to him than to me, Miss Armstrong, I assure you. He is a very good boy at learning, and minds every word that is said to him. I suppose he has shown you his copybooks too, hasn't he? I never saw a child that had so good a notion of writing. He's always a quick boy, miss, but never can he be thankful enough for you for teaching him how to put his quickness to profit. It will be the making of him." "I'm very glad to hear you speak so earnestly about his learning, because that makes me think that you will be pleased at hearing the business I have come upon. My papa, who is very—" Here poor Martha stopped short. She was going to add "kind to little Mchl, but her honest heart could not let her pronounce the words, so she changed the phrase and went on with "very desirous of being really useful to Mchl, has commissioned me, Mrs. Armstrong, to ask you if you did not think it would be more profitable and advantageous to him to be apprenticed to some good trade, the stocking weaving, for instance, than to run about our house any longer. Papa says he fears that it will give him habits of idleness which he may be the worse for all his life, and that would be quite contrary to his wishes, which have always been that he should benefit all his life long by his good behavior about the cow." Miss Armstrong's eyes, which had been very fixed on the countenance of Martha, every line of which spoke of truth and sincerity, fell upon the work she held in her hand as these words were uttered, and for a moment she made no answer. But feeling, perhaps, that this was both ungrateful and ungracious to her visitor, she looked up again and said, "I am sure, ma'am, that we can never thank you enough for all your kindness." There was a slight emphasis in the word upon the word "you," but it was enough to heighten the color of Martha, and for a moment she both felt and looked displeased. "My power of myself to befriend your boy, Mrs. Armstrong, is very little, I assure you," she said. "Of course it is natural that I should take more notice of him than a person like my father can, who has so many other things to attend to, but it is his generosity and benevolence that you must look for any lasting advantage you may hope to gain for him. Indeed, ma'am, I would be happy to take your advice in the disposal of him in any way, for I can't mistake your kindness or your power to judge what is best, which of course must be greater than mine, notwithstanding your young age, and if Mchl likes it, and you think it best, ma'am." Martha saw that the mother's fear of having her boy parted from her was combating the wiser hope for his future advantage, and fully conscious that the continuing his present mode of life could only be productive of mortification, she boldly answered this appeal, and in confiding innocence of her heart ventured to say, "Perhaps in this case, girl as I am, my judgment may be better than yours, Miss Armstrong, for I do not think it would be good or pleasant for Mchl in any way to continue living at the lodge as he does at the present, and I do not think that if to put a respectable trade, he may not only provide for himself, but be a help and a comfort to you and his brother likewise. This is my opinion, certainly, and now I ask his. He is still younger than me, to be sure, poor little fellow, and yet I think you ought to listen to his opinion." Well, Mike dear, said the widow, turning her head towards the child, you hear what the young lady says. Speak up, my dear, and tell us what you really think about it. I be ready to go, mother, if she bids me, and if you like it, replied the boy. You can judge, ma'am, that he knows his duty. That is just like him. From the time he was able to speak, dear creature, it was always the same, gentle, good, and reasonable. I won't say but what the parting with him will be a sore trial to me, but God forbid that I should set the wishes of my worn-out life against the hopes of his young one. How far away is it, miss? Do you happen to know where the master stocking-weaver bides, as he's to go to? Martha confessed her ignorance on this point, but added that though she should be sorry to hear it was too far off for him to occasionally come home and pay her a visit, she should be more sorry still were he to be placed in the town of Ashley. It would be only putting him forever in the way of temptation, Miss Armstrong, said she, and I am sure you are too sensible a woman to wish that he should be where the doing his duty would be likely to be a pain to him. Indeed, that I would, said the poor woman earnestly. 'Tis the seeing their poor young faces for ever so sad and careworn that is the worst trial of all. How true is what my dear father says about the factory people, thought Martha. How wonderfully they all do hate work. This conviction of their epidemic idleness, however, in no degree chilled the good girl's desire to at once to perform her father's will, and benefiting a very interesting, though not, as she believed, very industrious mother and son. So deeming it best to enter into no further discussion, but to accept the consent uttered by both as finally inconclusive, she rose, and smiling good-humoured at Mchl, said, Now you have taught me the way here, I think I shall be able to get back again by myself, and I dare say, Mchl, that you and your mother will be like to have a little conversation together about this new plan for you. But remember, dear, that you are home by 5 o'clock to read your lesson, and show me your copybook. We were interrupted this morning, you know. Then, leaving in the poor widow's hand a welcome token of her visit, and promising that she would either bring or send the papers necessary for her to sign before long, the excellent Martha Dowling departed, after having most innocently, but most effectually, lent her aid to the perpetration of as hateful a crime as the black heart of a long-hardened depravity could devise. Having waited till the figure of the young lady had passed across the little window, the widow Armstrong pulled her boy towards her, and gave him a mother's kiss. To be sure thee dost look all the better, my Mike, for good food and fine clothing, but I shan't be satisfied unless you tell me that you like all these new favours that they are going to confer upon you. I like to go, mother, very much, replied Mchl stoutly. Thank God. Then, my darling, you are provided for, she rejoined with a deep sigh. I have known a many stocking weavers, Mike, exceedingly well to do, and there was never one of 'em, I'll answer for it, that had a better will to work and to do his duty than you have. So I have no right to doubt but that you will do well, and I don't doubt it. But 'tis parting with thee, my dear, dear child. Oh, Mike, you have been a comfort to me ever since you was born. How do I know if— Mother, cried the boy, interrupting her, I'll be a comfort to you still. I'll tell you what I've got in my head to do, and just see if it's not a good plan. I mean to be the very best boy that ever my master had. And when I've gone on working with him for a bit, 2 or 3 months perhaps, mother, time enough for him really to find out that I am a good boy, I will tell him all about you and Teddy, and make him understand that if he wants to keep me in good heart to work, he must let me trudge away home to pass a Sunday now and then with you. Pass a Sunday with you now and then with you two. I don't think he'll be able to say no, mother, when I tell him about Teddy's poor legs, and all you have done for us, lying abed here.